One of the biggest things that I learned about and that I took into my own practice for my business is about money management. So today's video is where I actually spill all the tea and I let y'all in on what I was doing for the past year to expand my business and how you can expand your business as well. So let's jump right in. The first thing I did to expand my business was I became a student of my business. I studied my business. I began to look into every single aspect of it and really try to understand what made it successful, what was making me money, what was not making me money. I decided to look at my customers and really get to know them, meaning their likes and dislikes, their trends, what they were actually spending money on in the years gone by, the things that they seem to want more of, the things that they're always asking me to stock or to get for them, or things that basically I know my customers want. That's what I was trying to figure out. What do they want? Because it's very easy to look at somebody else's business that's doing, well, or you think it's doing well, and you try to replicate what that person is doing, but they are doing, hopefully, what works for their customers. For me, I was able to pinpoint a few types of items in particular that always seem to do well. And those are the items I mentally took note of. Well, it wasn't even really a mental note. It was like a notebook. I took note of those items and I began looking into how I could stock these items, how I could get them for a cheaper price overall, how I could get more of it, even to understand what specifically was it about this item that my customers seem to always buy, regardless of the price, regardless of the season, that sort of thing. I also looked into when my sales did the best. So I was able to pinpoint the 5 months out of the year that sales were always high. I could always expect a particular target in terms of sales. And I was able to see why these months and these times of the year were the times when my customers were buying the most. I also looked into the areas that I was not doing very well in. And I had to be honest with myself in terms of the things that I knew as a business I should do or could do, but I wasn't doing because of different reasons. And I'll get into some of those things later on. So I really had to be able to pinpoint where were my strong points, where were my weak areas, where were the gaps in terms of where I was leaving money on the table. I could have had an opportunity to sell this or that, but I didn't because I was probably afraid. So those are some of the things that I learned about my business when I began to really study it, because you can't expand something if you don't really take the time to understand it. So the second thing that I did to improve and expand my business last year was I invested in my biggest asset, which is me. And that is one of the biggest things you can do for your business. So what I mean by that is I began to read books and listen to podcasts and just immerse myself thoroughly in everything that had to do with business in terms of the direction that I wanted to go, in terms of my industry, in terms of, looking at people who are doing what I want to do. And I don't mean local people alone. I mean, there are a couple of local businesses that I do admire, but I'm talking international. I'm talking expanding my goals in terms of where I see my business going. And I began to really study what they were doing and what they were doing well, and also allowing myself to be a student and not just the business coach or talking to people about how they could improve their business. I felt like I had reached a limit in terms of what I knew. And I really started to take some time to really learn and drink up and soak up a lot of the knowledge and the information that's out there. So one of the biggest things that I learned about and that I took into my own practice for my business is about money management. I read and listened to and stalked almost the author of this book called Profit First. And it's basically about managing your money as a business owner by changing the way you think of the whole equation of money. So instead of thinking of the equation as sales minus expenses will give you your profits, Mike Michalowicz talks about paying yourself first, pulling out the profit first, so that it would be sales minus the profits. And that will give you the figure that you need to work with for your expenses. Now, this also went hand in hand with basically an idea that I've always had about business, where I prefer to keep expenses low when you're just starting out. Now, I've had several businesses in the past. I've had a clothing store, which didn't really end well because I did not realize how expenses can really eat into your profit and basically make you collapse sooner rather than later. So I've always had in mind that if ever I had another business, I would keep the expenses as low as possible so that the business could actually have the opportunity to grow and build. So what Mike Michalowicz teaches is to allocate money for the things that are important by splitting it up. So that way you kind of resist the temptation, or you don't have the temptation altogether of using money like to buy stock or to pay for this or to do whatever that really should not be spent. So that's one of the things that he talks about, like splitting up money into different accounts, not just having a business account, like one business account, but actually having several business accounts, which I really didn't think of before reading his book and listening to, his lectures and things like that. Another thing that the Profit First method helps you with is it forces you to make do with a tight budget for expenses. And honestly, I think this is something that a lot of new businesses can learn from. And as I said, I learned from it from my failed clothing store that I had a few years ago. But I usually see a lot of new businesses on social media where their packaging is, the tissue and the box with the confetti and the stickers and the bag and the whatever and the whatever. And I'm 100% positive that their profits are not what it could be if they would lower their expenses. And that is, I don't know how else to say it, because I did another video in the past and I talked about lowering your expenses as a way to make more money or make more profits. I'll put it up here. Oh, up here. I can't remember what side I'm supposed to do that on. I haven't filmed in so long, my goodness. But yeah, I can't stress enough how important it is to keep your expenses low when you're just starting out. And the thing is, my dad used to tell me something similar to that back when I was like a teenager and like finishing up UE. He would basically say,
you would survive on any amount of money that you get as your salary.
So when I was making like $4,000 as like an OJT back in the day, I thought I was like no kind of money. And then when I started making a little more money after I finished my degree, I think, I thought I was no kind of money. And the thing is, whether you're making X amount of money or Y amount of money, you will find a way to survive. And in the same way, I had to like see for my business where I could cut my expenses and really not waste money on things that were not important. And it also, the Profit First method helped me because it encourages you to pay yourself. And for a long time, I was not paying myself. One, because I didn't need the money, and two, because I wanted to keep putting the money back into the business so that the business could actually grow, which was great, because I was surviving, I was living, I was fine financially. But the Profit First method talks to you about paying yourself first, because you do need some kind of motivation. You do need to feel as though you are seeing something from all the work that you're putting in for your business. And that was something that I definitely took from the Profit First method. And even though I'm not paying myself a huge salary from the business, I am still taking something for myself that is worthwhile. Now, the third thing that I did to expand my business was work on the business relationships that I had. So the two main relationships that I have for my business, had at the time, was my customers and my suppliers. I didn't have any workers at the time to focus on relationships with. But focusing on my customers and the relationship that I had with them taught me a lot. So I realized that I was very fearful of showing up online, which is so weird because I was doing YouTube, but yet I was not showing up on my business page really. So I realized that I was leaving a big opportunity to grow my business, because part of the business is getting to know your customers, or having your customers buy into not the products themselves, but also buy into your brand and buy into who you are as a person, as a business, all of that. And because I was not showing up online in any big way, I realized that I was not giving myself the full opportunity to really connect with my customers and have them trust me and know me and all of those things. And in the past year or so, I have been making a greater effort by far to post myself on my business page and to, show a lot more of my personality. And that's another reason why I couldn't really juggle the YouTube channel plus expanding the business, because it would have been too much posting and all of that. And I get overwhelmed sometimes with all of that social media activity, and I need to take a break. So it was one or the other. And obviously building the business side of things was a better idea for me, because I can't tell you about something that I've never done. So in building the relationship with my customers, we've started to engage a lot more with each other in DM. So customers would actually message to tell me random things that have nothing to do with actually buying items from me. And I would be like messaging back and having such a fun time in the DMs with them, because it's almost like people that became your friends over time. Now, it took some time, but that's where we're at right now, where like I could literally call names. Like I know Instagram names by heart of my popular or my loyal customers. And that's because I took the first step of building that relationship that I had with them. And you can't expand your business if your customers aren't buying from you. And they won't buy from you if they don't know you, if they don't trust you, if they don't feel like they connect with your business at all. So, I mean, it works. It works obviously for the business in terms of sales being increased, but I love when my customers DM me and tell me funny things and respond to like stories or laugh at my jokes or whatever. It really does make me feel happy that I'm building something beyond all you buy from me now, you know? By the way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this video is adding value to your entrepreneurship journey. So the next aspect of building relationships will be with my suppliers. Now, I have local suppliers as well as foreign suppliers. But the local suppliers, those are the ones who I would physically go into their stores, their warehouses or their business places, and I would see the items and all of that. I would go in there very often so that they knew my face, but I wouldn't really like talk much to people and all that. I'm generally quite introverted sometimes. So I would just go in, do what I had to do and, leave. Whenever I would go with my husband, they would be like, hey, Kareem, where you going, blah, blah, blah. They would talk to him. They know his name. They have his number. It's all kind of, friending with him. And I realized, you know what, if I want to expand my business, I need for my suppliers to know me, because he would be like, hey, when you're going by these people, tell them to leave one of those things for me in the back now. Tell them to put aside 100 of them things for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, they do that? I didn't know they used to do that. Like, you wouldn't even pay for the item, but they're keeping it for you and they just have it there for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he come in to take one, he not even paying for all. And it was all kind of backing up. So what I realized is that's another area of my business that I was falling short in. I had to really push myself out of my comfort zone because, like I said, I'm not very extroverted for the most part. So I don't know, it's a strange thing. Like I'm extroverted when I want to be. So I would go to the my local suppliers and I would make a little small talk. That's how I started. I couldn't do much more than that at first. It was like too weird. It was too much. I like to just be by myself, like in a zone, So I started doing that. And now when I go to probably 95% of my local suppliers, they know me by name. They will ask for my daughter. They definitely know my husband. They know my vehicle. If they see me driving down the road, they will blow their horn. They will wave me. I know almost all the owners. No, I think I know all the owners. The owners know all the owners know my names. To the point where I followed with an owner the other day. But that is another story by itself. These people be testing my patience. Hey, look at that. So yeah. So now everybody knows me. So when I go in, it's like, hey, Lizelle, how are you going? Long time I didn't see you. How small girl, blah, blah. Like some of them actually follow the business page. It's kind of weird, like having the suppliers follow the business page. But like the owners and the workers, I mean, not their business page following my business page, but personally following. And they're like, hey, like I saw you have blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, they see those things? It's very strange. So in expanding my business, I had to expand my relationships and improve on my relationships, particularly with my customers and my suppliers. So the fourth way that I expanded my business, to me, is the most interesting topic. Like I find great joy talking about this with people because it's so much good information. So what I did was I made room for more. So like, I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, but people basically say when you want to you need to move out something, make space so that you can get the thing. If you want a new fridge, you have to basically give away your fridge, sell your fridge, make room for the fridge so that when it comes, you will have somewhere to put it. So basically that's what I did, right? I did a few things under this point. So one of the first things that I did was I moved to a bigger warehouse. Now before, we kept our goods in a stock room, a warehouse, a small warehouse in the back of our house. After a while, I realized that I cannot grow the business in that space. I tried. I really did try. So I bought a few shelves and I tried to clean up the space and make the space as efficient as possible in terms of what we had. But I soon realized, like after maybe a month or two, I realized, nah, this can't work. It doesn't make sense trying to operate out of this small space. I need something much bigger. And I was like, God, I want an office and I want a warehouse space, or office and a warehouse space. And things just worked out so smoothly once I decided that I wanted something much bigger. So we ended up moving the business, the goods and everything into our own office and warehouse space. I want to do a warehouse store. I've been filming it. It's taking a while to just film and all that, but I will try to post the office store video after this one. I think sometimes when you are ready to say, yes, I want something bigger, even though you don't know how it's going to come, I think that is when God is like, oh, okay, good. She's ready now. Because like you have opened your brain, you have opened your mind, you have opened your spirit to more, and you're not limiting what God can do in your life anymore. So I don't know. That's just how I've envisioned all of it. But yes, so we moved into a bigger warehouse and we were like, how are we going to fill up this warehouse? Like we don't have much stuff to put in there. But y'all, we've been in our warehouse like about, how long ago? I think we moved in June of 2024. Yeah, 2024. We already looking to expand because it's already to the point where we don't even use the office anymore as an office. We just have the office as part of the warehouse because we need more space. So I'm telling you guys this to encourage you. If you want to expand not just physically, but expand like your mind and the possibilities of what you can do. Because if you see the size of this space compared to the space that we had before, I would have been crazy to think I could fill that space up. And we filled it up in no time. So anyhow, we didn't just move to a new warehouse. We also hired a worker. Now, I had to hire a worker because of the same thing. If you think you're going to expand, if you believe that you're going to expand, you don't know how it's going to happen, you have to make room for the growth. So I hired a worker before even like fully expanding yet, because I figured I would need to train her. I would need to make sure that she's on board. She understands everything. She's able to do the work. And then we can launch all the new things that we want to launch. So I hired a new worker at the beginning of 2024, and she was my operations manager. Now, basically, she would run the whole business and do everything that needed to be done. That was the more or less job spec. And I was paying her a good salary so that she would be, happy to come and do the work, because it was a lot of work. And well, for those of you who don't know, I have a full-time job that I don't plan to resign from this month or next month. But if God tells me to resign, y'all, I will do that in a hot second. So I knew that I did not want to deal with, increases in sales and orders and all of that. I didn't want to have to do all of that work, because before that, I was answering all the messages, taking all the orders, doing all of that. And it was all in DMs and in WhatsApp. So I knew I had to get a worker and I knew I had to get the warehouse in order to really expand. So the last thing that I had to do here to make room is I had to basically automate and make things more efficient and make things easier to be able to handle the level of sales that I knew was going to come in. And this is where I decided I was going to get a website. Now, I started by doing research on where I could get a website built, like who could build a website for me. I got some quotes and it was pretty expensive. It was like $30,000 roughly. And I was like, oh, that's way above my budget. So what's the next option? And I don't know how I stumbled across this and how I never knew what this was all about before. But you guys, I created my website. Y'all hearing those birds in the background? Oh, sorry, yeah. Anyhow, yes. So I created my own website for myself, basically for free, all by using Shopify. So Shopify is basically a website that allows you to build your own website for yourself. You can either use your own domain name that you want personally, or they will just give you a domain name like blah blah blah.shopify.com. And I didn't want that. I wanted the best. So I just paid I paid for a domain name, housegoalstt.com. It costs like $140 TT a year, which is normal. I think it was actually on sale for the first year, so I might have gotten it for like 50 cents or something. I don't know. I don't remember. I can go back and check, but it was very cheap the first year. There was some kind of sale and I was like, yes, I'll take it. So I got the domain name, which is housegoalstt.com. And then I went to Shopify and I basically built the website from scratch. You don't have to know any kind of coding, even though I do know how to code. I do know a lot of things because I did computer science for A levels, but you don't have to have any kind of IT. Well, I wouldn't say any kind of IT background. It would help to have some kind of IT background. So I built the website. Now it took me 3 months. So it took me from like October to somewhere mid-January to finish completely and test it. Because I mean, you have to keep testing everything as you go along to make sure that nothing is like weird. But at some point I was like, okay, that's enough testing. I need to just launch this website. So the 3 things that I did to make room were I got a new warehouse, I hired a new worker, a worker, and I created a website for myself. So the 5th and final thing that I did to expand my business was to be generous. Now you might say, well, how is being generous expanding your business? Well, the Bible says, give and it will be given back unto you. And it wouldn't just be given back. If you give $5, you won't just get $5 back. It actually went on to say, it will be given back unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It said, that's how people will give to you. That's how men will give into your bosom. And y'all, not everybody's supposed to know I'm a Christian by now, but this is something that I saw for myself. Like when I stopped being afraid to give because I didn't have a lot, that's when I started to see God just bless my life abundantly. And so one of the biggest tips I can give you, and one of the biggest things that I did to grow my business, was I started to be more generous. Like I stopped being afraid of giving, because the more you hold your hands tight to keep what you have, is the less you can receive because your hands are closed. Oh my gosh, that's a whole word, y'all. So that is one of the biggest tips I can give you as well. Become more generous. So just to recap the tips of how I expanded my business in the past year and how you can too. Number 1, study your business. Number 2, invest in your biggest asset, which is yourself. Number 3, build your relationships between your customers, your workers, your suppliers. Number 4, make room for the growth before it even happens. And number 5, be generous. Give and it'll come back to you. So thank you so much for watching my video, and I really hope that all of this made a real impact and that you could grow your business this year in 2025. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.